Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Tartosa, which is the world that we got from the game pack, The Sims 4 My Win Stories, and I'm going to be building a little rustic Tuscan home. So this house ends up having one bedroom and one bathroom, and it's built on a 20 by 20 lot. Now, if you're curious where I'm building in the world, I'm pretty sure if you was to look at the map, it's in the bottom left-hand side, but I'm really surprised in myself because where I'm building, this has got to be like one of the coolest lots in the whole of The Sims 4, because you might have noticed something about this lot in particular. It seems to be on its own little secluded island. I feel like I mention this every single time I build in this world, but building the world of Tartosa is definitely one of my favourite worlds to build in the whole entire game. I just love building, you know, like more Mediterranean, more like rustic kind of houses. I try and focus on building a lot of like Tuscan, Italian kind of houses, because that type of architecture is just, I think it's so pretty. In real life, it is like one of my favourite things to look at on Pinterest, just buildings in Tuscany, and they're just so pretty. And so I always try and recreate stuff like that in the world of Tartosa, but I'm really surprised within myself that it is taking me so long to actually sit down and build something on this lot. But this week I was on Pinterest, which I feel like if you watch me quite regularly, that's going to be absolutely no surprise to you, but I love Pinterest. I'm literally on it 24/7. But I was on Pinterest and this picture came onto my homepage. I'll find it and I'll pop it up on the screen now. Instantly fell in love with it. It looks to be some sort of doll's house model of some sort of like older, rustic, kind of Tuscan looking house. And I saw it and I thought, I need to try and recreate that in The Sims 4. And something that I really liked about it, if you were to look in the back left hand side, there seems to be a little bit of like a crumbling away building. Maybe there used to be like a castle attached to it, or maybe there was another building and then over time it's like fallen down or something. Whatever the case is, I just thought this was so cool, and I just basically wanted to try and recreate something like in the game. And I saw it and I thought, this is just the perfect opportunity to use, you know, the Get Together expansion pack. With the live edit menu, we've got some like broken down buildings. They're kind of like ruins from, I think they're meant to be from a castle. I thought, perfect opportunity. I'm going to try and use them in this build and try and make them blend in and try and make it seem like this house used to maybe have like a castle or maybe like another house attached to it, and over time it's just like fallen down and just decayed, because a lot of time buildings, if they're really old and they're not built the best, they fall down, you know, it's just part of age. And so I was thinking I'll try and make it look like there maybe used to be some sort of a castle attached to this little house on this secluded island. And yeah, this is how it turned out, so I really hope you guys like it. But getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the build itself. So like I've already mentioned, this house ends up having one bedroom, which up until recently was something that I didn't really seem to build that often. I normally build quite big things in the game, but if you watched it a few weeks ago, I built a gardener's dream home. It was in the world of Brenton Bay. You know when we got the basement treasures kit and the greenhouse haven kit? Well, I basically tried to build like a gardener's dream home, more focused on the greenhouse kit. And that house ended up being one bedroom and one bathroom. And a lot of you said in the comments that you really liked the fact that I was building more smaller homes for like single Sims or couples. And so if you liked that one, I hope you like this one as well. But yeah, the house ends up having one bedroom. But if you want to, there is definitely space if you wanted to have a second room. So you see the way that I built the house, there seems to be like a bit of a square on the left hand side, and there's kind of a link on the ground floor that kind of connects the two buildings together. Even though it's one building, it kind of looks like two buildings. I feel like you could probably pass this over as two separate buildings. But on the right hand side, on the upstairs, you can definitely make that into a second bedroom. But for the purpose of the sim that I imagine living here, I decided to make it into an art studio. Part of the reason, I'm not going to lie, why I decided to make it into an art studio is because I thought this is probably the perfect place. If your sim is an artist and they like to maybe paint from reference, what better place to get them to live than on like a little secluded island that literally has views of just the water and all the greenery, and then kind of like the Tartosa town in the distance. I just thought this was a perfect place to have an artist sim live. But in that room, where it's kind of like on the upstairs level but there's nothing connected to it on like any side of the wall, it's just roof pieces. It has so many different windows. There's literally windows on every single wall. It lets in so much natural daylight, and so it was just perfect to make into an artist's room. In there ends up being a few different art easels. There ends up being a candle making station. I feel like whenever I use the candle making station, I always remind myself how fun it is and how I should always use it more often in my own like personal builds and gameplay, because it is really fun. Your Sims can literally make candles from their hand. Like, they go through the whole entire process. But when I was imagining the Sim that would live in this house, I was more so thinking a Sim that really enjoys painting. You know, they're an artist, that is their day job, that is how they pay the bills. But they just really like arts and crafts, and anything that they can make with their hands is just completely up their street. I also had the idea at one point that maybe they could really be into like herbalism. You know, the skill that we got from the outdoor retreat game pack? I liked the idea of maybe them doing a few like herbalism bits and pieces here and there. I don't know, I just really like the idea. But yeah, I decided to make that room on the right hand side of the build into a little separate art studio. But of course, if you want to, you could definitely make that into another bedroom, depending on how many household members that maybe you want to live in this house. But just for the idea that I had in my head, it was just the perfect place for an artist to have like their little arts and crafts centre, if you want to put it that way. But as well as that, in this house, there ends up being kind of like a little courtyard on the left hand side. Now that's where I try to use them live edit buildings. Now if you've got the get together expansion pack, you've already got these in your game. You just have to go through a series of different cheats to be able to gain access to them. The cheats, I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember off memory. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop the cheats on the screen now. So if you want to maybe play about with the debug menu and the live edit menu, then these are the cheats that you have to enter. I couldn't tell you them off the top of my head, because where I've got the Better Build Buy mod installed into my game, and I've had it in my game for literal years at this point, I can't remember the last time I actually entered the cheats, because they're just, the live edit menu and the debug menu is just a part of my normal catalogue now. But yeah, they're from the live edit menu. And basically what I did is I built the main structure of the house. I got the house to a point where I was happy with all the walls, and I knew I wasn't going to change it. And then I went through the live edit menu and I found these kind of like old pieces of ruins, and then ever so slightly tried to edge it into the wall to make it look like it was attached. I then found this archway, which again is from the Get Together live edit menu. They're kind of part of a set, if you want to put it that way. There is a ton of different older kind of rundown buildings from the Get Together expansion pack, and also the Discover University expansion pack. I feel like there might be a few different older looking buildings that have kind of had their day. But there is this archway, which is from the Get Together expansion pack, and I place it down, and tell you what, I'm so happy because it's 100% usable. It works like an actual archway, because I was a little bit worried initially when it came into playtesting this build, because I know with certain different live edit objects that we have in the game, some of them have kind of like almost like a blueprint, where if you place it down and you want to get your Sims to go near it, they kind of like freak out and they don't know what to do, and then they like wave their hands up in the air. I was a little bit worried, to be completely honest with you, because I don't think I've ever used the archway before in any other build. I got my Sims to playtest it. The archway works like a normal archway, didn't run into a single problem, and also where I've placed it, Sims will just walk directly underneath it. They don't even like bash into it or anything. I was so happy when it came around to playtesting it, because I didn't have to move it about whatsoever. And so yeah, I'm so happy with that little area of the build. But inside the actual courtyard itself, I tried to make it into kind of like a little flower arranging area. So I placed down the flower arranging table, I placed down some planters. I've already got my Sim to come in and playtest the planters, and then pre-plant some flowers in there for you. Couldn't tell you the names of all the different plants, because there's some that are from seasons. I'm not gonna lie, I don't actually know how you pronounce the plants' names, but I know I used a daisy and then some pink flowers from the seasons expansion pack. And then I also moved objects, some kind of different seedlings and watering cans and bags of soil onto the actual ruin piece itself, to make it feel like they're an active part of the house. Like, they're not just these random bits of building plonked onto the side. They've been actively used in this household. And so yeah, I moved objects from like watering cans and different like plants and stuff onto almost where like the windows would have been in this older building. Oh, and also I placed down some ivy onto the live edit building as well, because in a second you'll see I'm going to go around the house and place down a ton of different ivy pieces, and just even cracks as well, just trying to make it feel like this house it's really old, and it's probably had its day in terms of it needs a gardener to come around and do to the ivy, because there ends up being so much in this house. But I placed down some of that ivy onto the building as well, because I wanted it to seem like it was an active part, like I'm saying, of the house, and I wanted it to feel as realistic and as attached to the house as I could make it, if that makes any sense. But you can see at the front of the build, I've pretty much done the majority of the landscaping now. The way that I built the house, it's on a really high foundation, but you probably wouldn't be able to tell because I used terrain manipulation to try and make it seem like it was on a bit of a hill. I then found these rocks, which are from, I think, the Sims 4 base game. I think the ones that I've used are from the world of Oasis Springs, but I basically put them in kind of like a semicircle-ish motion. I say ish because the first bit's like a semicircle and then it kind of goes off a bit, but I wanted it to seem natural and I wanted it to not be like a complete semicircle because I feel like that wouldn't be as natural as kind of like a bit of a skew width kind of shape. But I kind of like merged them into the terrain. I did initially pull out some of the rocks that we got from the world of Tartosa because I wanted to use the same rocks that are in this world because then like the colour of them would be the same. But something that I noticed is that once I pulled out these rocks from the My Wedding Stories live edit menu and I sized them down, when you zoom in, the rocks kind of disappear, and I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted you to be able to see the actual rocks in gameplay, and so I decided just to use some ones from the Sims 4 base game. You would have seen as well in the front area, kind of like more towards the front left hand side of the build, I placed down this little, it looks to be like a wishing well or something where your Sims will be able to get water. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because it's a purely decorational object, and surprisingly, it's from the Get Famous expansion pack. It's such a weird pack to be able to receive such a rustic looking well in, but yeah, the actual well that I've placed down at the front of the build, unfortunately it doesn't work. Like the actual object itself in game is just purely for decoration. I'm pretty sure the reason why we got it is, you know, the Get Famous expansion pack has like the acting career. I think it's meant to be like a part of a set, or like if you ever want to build acting sets in your own personal gameplay, it's meant to be like a set item. But I placed it down at the front of the build because even though it doesn't work, I just liked the idea of your Sims being able to go outside or go into the little well and get a little bucket and then just get some water for, I don't know, the bath or whatever you get the water for. I don't know, but I placed it down at the front of the build, and then I placed down loads of different like shrubs and rose bushes around it. I then placed down some smaller like looking rocks and then just tried to merge it in and make it feel more natural. But over here you can see that I've now moved on into this courtyard bit, and hopefully you can see what I meant by when I said I tried to make it feel like it was an active part of the house. Like I merged in loads of different like watering cans and books and seedlings and just extra plant pots onto kind of like these empty archways, which I imagine if this building was an old building, like it was an actively older building that has just, you know, deteriorated over time, that would have been where the windows in the building would have been. And so I used kind of like the window sill to be kind of like a little shelving area for your Sims to place down all their bits and bobs. But yeah, like I said, in that area ends up being like a flower arranging table, a few different planters, and then that is pretty much it. There is definitely space if you wanted to remove some of the different like hydrangeas and some of the different landscaping and maybe place down some more like gameplay objects. Maybe you want to place down like the beekeeping hut or something, but I just liked the fact that it was a small little quaint area and it didn't have much, but your Sims can literally stand there at the flower arranging table, and if they look up, they've literally just got sea, like it's just water for miles and miles. But you can see that I've now moved back to kind of like the front of the build. I'm just going around adding in some final windows because when I initially came in, I built the structure and then I went around and I did the wallpapering and I did a few windows. I didn't do the windows for the rest of the building, so I just went around and just added them in. And here you can see that I'm going around and placing down this live edit ivy. Now the ivy that I've used, the more detailed one, you can see that I've placed down on kind of like the corners of the building. That one is from Discover University, and yeah, you can find it in the live edit menu. And then I will place down some more like clumped up pieces of ivy. The clumped up pieces are from the Cottage Living expansion pack. I think we might have some in the normal build and buy menu, but I know there is definitely some also in the live edit menu as well. And then I also placed down some wisteria onto some different like areas in the build, not all over the house, but in certain like different like nooks and crannies. I placed down some clumps of wisteria. Also go around and place down some like individual cracks into the walls and like scuffs and marks to make it feel like this building is not as old as the live edit building next to it, but it's getting there. Like it has been here for some time. And then yeah, you can see that I'm just finishing up this landscaping area over here. I was really struggling on the back garden landscaping because where I had such a big front portion of the build where I had all the terrain manipulation, I had all these different rocks in a kind of skew with kind of weird way, and I had all the terrain paint and stuff. When it came around to actually focusing on the back portion, I'm building on a 20 by 20 lot. I really didn't have that much space, but I just tried to landscape it to feel as similar to the front garden as I could possible with the space that I had. And yeah, I just tried my best to try and make it blend in and to make it feel like it was just blended in with the environment and the rest of the house. But you can see that I'm just going around now, finishing off the exterior like portion of the build. I am going to quickly just go in and just do the little front portion by the front door. Now the front door area, I end up using this wall decoration. The one that I've used I think is from Eco Lifestyle. You see over here, it's kind of like a square trellis, if that's what it's called. I've done this trick a few times now, but basically what I did is I placed down one wall decoration, which was kind of like these little lines, and they're going from up to down. And then I've got another wall decoration, which again is from Eco Lifestyle, and it's one that goes left to right. If you merge them in together, you can get them to a point where it looks like it's like a square trellis. I then found this more ivy, but this ivy has flowers in it. The pink one is what I'm talking about. But I basically merged that in to make it look like them flowers are kind of like growing up it. And then over here I placed down this little bench. The bench itself is from the Greenhouse Haven kit. Unfortunately, it's just like a normal table. I really wish that this item was a flower arranging table in the game and not just like another side table, because although it looks really nice and it's really pretty, it doesn't actually have any purpose. It's just purely for decoration. We have a few different tables like this in the game now. I know we got one from, you know, the Blooming Rooms kit, like the plant kit. We've got one from that kit as well, where it looks to be like some sort of flower arranging station, but it's just like an active table. I really wish they would maybe update that for if you have the Seasons expansion pack, so we have like a different version of the flower arranging table, because don't get me wrong, love using the flower arranging table. I use it in like 99% of my builds, but it would be nice if we could use a different looking flower arranging table. And unfortunately, with the Seasons expansion pack, we only got one version of it, and so yeah, I really wish they would update the tables that look to be flower arranging tables to be actually flower arranging tables, if that makes sense. But over here on the other side, I tried to make it look like, and this was my best effort, I tried to make it look like there was like gardening shoes or like wellies or something right by the front door. But the thing is, we don't have any individual wellies as like an actual item. We have a few different shoe clutter clumps. So we have some from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, and it's like 2 sets of shoes. There's 4 different versions of them. There is 2 versions that are high heels, and then there is 2 versions that are kind of like flat shoes, Converse, whatever. But we don't have any individual shoes itself. And also the shoes that we got from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, they don't really look like gardening shoes. I was more so thinking maybe a pair of Wellington boots and maybe, you know, Crocs, maybe like a pair of Crocs or something. So what I did is I placed down at this base game like clutter decoration. It's basically just a set of shoes, and it's almost like a little shoe rack, but I merged it into the floor, so then you could only see the top level of shoes, and the bottom level of shoes had just completely gone into the terrain. I then found some clutter and tried to kind of place it on top of some of the shoes on this shoe rack, because the actual item itself, once I moved it into the floor, we then had 3 pairs of shoes. We had one really tall pair of boots, one like medium pair of boots, and then there was a pair of high heels. I didn't want there to be high heels by the front door, so what I did is I found like this box clutter, just that could be general bits and bobs. I placed that over the high heels, so it kind of disguised it. I then found some more clutter like plant pots and just extra pieces of just stuff basically, and merged it around it, and then tried to make it seem like the taller boots were maybe like Wellingtons or something. I really liked the idea. But also in that little area, I do want to note there is like a staircase that goes up to the top part of the building, but you would have seen in the actual staircase on the exterior, I placed down a door. I feel like you've probably already gathered this by this point because you saw me come in and do the floor plan, but the door that I've placed on the exterior in the staircase is honestly, it's just purely for decoration. It's because going back to the picture that I found on Pinterest, it was something that was in the picture and I really liked it. The staircase in the picture is actually the other way around, the way that I placed it, but I wanted your Sims to be able to get onto the staircase and not have to go the long way round the lot and have to go like the other way. So I did make some changes here and there, but yeah, I did want to mention that that door that I placed in the staircase itself, it's purely for decoration, but I thought it looked pretty cute. The one that I've used is from the Werewolves game pack, and it kind of fitted the more like rustic kind of run down kind of idea that I was going for. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on inside the house. I did the little front entrance hallway, just has like a little side table. I placed down a debug basket, which is from the Jungle Adventure game pack, and I merged in some like phone and keys in there. The entrance hallway itself, I couldn't really clutter up because going back to the floor plan, that little like the entrance hallway is almost like the link in between the lounge room and then like the kitchen area and the dining room area. It's kind of like the link in between two of the main rooms in the house, and so I couldn't really clutter it up too much. But there is some other doors that kind of going out onto the back porch area. On the back porch, I ended up placing down some more planters. Your Sims can do a ton of gardening in this build, but there is a few more planters, and then I placed down the grill so your Sims can do the little herbalism skill and stuff. I do want to mention, when it came around to playtesting this house, I've playtested absolutely everything. Everything works absolutely fine apart from one thing, and the one thing that didn't work is in that little back porch area where I placed down the planters. I don't know what it was, but my Sims just couldn't plant anything, and so what I decided to do instead, you know the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack? We have some planters that are like vertical planters. Honestly, never use them. Must admit, kind of forget that they're a thing, but I placed them down instead. So there still is two areas for your Sims to plant things in, but they're just vertical plants, and I've already got my Sim to come in and plant them, more so because I wanted to test that they worked, and I'm so happy that I tested everything because I wouldn't have expected them planters that I originally placed to not work, but weirdly enough they did. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on and I've started going around and furnishing the kitchen. This kitchen ends up being so cozy and sweet and just wholesome. It looks so homey and just so, it's very small. I mean, you could probably tell already by the size of it. There's literally one free counter in this kitchen, but I mean, if you delete some of the clutter that I've placed down onto some of the other surfaces, you could definitely free up some counter space. But it was just so wholesome and cute, and I placed down a little table lamp in the corner, and so if you want to, you can definitely turn off like the main lights in that room and have it so the kitchen has like a little table lamp. I saw a TikTok, I think I might have mentioned this before, but I saw a TikTok not too long ago about having little lamps in your kitchen and how it makes it just so much more like wholesome and cutesy and just sweet. And I thought about that TikTok when I was decorating the kitchen, and I placed down this little tiny lamp which is from, I think, the high school years expansion pack, and I mean, they were right. It just makes the room just feel so much more sweet and just quaint, and just I just absolutely love the kitchen. But in the kitchen I placed down the counters that are from the Country Kitchen Kit. Honestly, I never use them because I find the Country Kitchen Kit counters and then the Cottage Living counters are quite similar in the sense of the theme that the counters are looking towards. Like, they look a little bit more like homey and rustic and a little bit more like cottagey. And so my favourite counters in the game, or at least some of my favourite counters to use, are the ones from the Cottage Living expansion pack. I normally go towards them ones, but for this build I thought, you know what, I'm going to use the Country Kitchen ones because they're a little bit more weathered. They look a little bit more like run down, a little bit more used in comparison to the Cottage Living ones, and so I used them in there. I placed down my favourite fridge in the game, which is the Smeg looking fridge that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack, and then the oven itself is from, I think, Cottage Living. Again, it looks a little bit more rustic and a little bit more weathered, but it was just absolutely perfect for this build. But now, as you can see, I've moved over and I've started furnishing the hallway, which is also kind of like the dining room space, but then it also ends up having a piano in here as well. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about, which made me honestly so happy, you see what I'm doing over here? I basically wanted to make it look like there was some sort of like small little unit where your Sims could sit down on. Initially, I just wanted it to do for just more like the aesthetic. I didn't think this was going to be worked. Like, I didn't think this was going to be usable. Like I said, I've playtested this whole entire build. Everything works. Surprisingly, this little area that I've made over here, it's functional. Like, your Sims can actively sit on that seat that I've merged in to these kitchen cabinets. So the way that I did it is I got these kitchen cabinets. These are the ones that you're meant to place above the counters. I got the ones from Parenthood in this kind of like light creamy swatch. I then placed them down onto the wall, and then using the tool mod, I rotated them 180 degrees. So then the front of the cabinets where like the little glasses and the handles to open them are like completely disguised. I then used the gravity pull feature and then pulled them out, so then they were coming like away from the staircase, because when I rotated them, they kind of went into the staircase. I then found this little like ottoman. The one that I've used is from Laundry Day, and then I sized it down, I think ever so slightly, but I moved it up into the unit, and yeah, it works. Your Sims can sit there. Really surprised me. I really expected it not to work, and like I said, I was more so just doing it originally for like the aesthetic of having like a little seating area. But if you want to, your Sims can sit down there, they can maybe journal, they can write in their book, they can go on their phone, they can do whatever they want there, like how they would on like a normal seating area. The one thing I will say though, where I elevated the ottoman up so that it was coming out of the cabinets, the game recognises it as being a seating area that has been raised up. So when your Sims sit there, their feet don't touch the ground. Their feet are kind of like dangling, which I kind of like in a way. You know, like when kids sit down on any surface in the game, whether it be like the side of their bed, whether it be like downstairs in the living room or something, they're sitting down. Where kids in the game are small, their feet kind of like dangle a little bit. Your Sims do that. But I still think it's really sweet, and yeah, I was really happy, really pleasantly surprised that actually ends up working. But anyway, as you can see over here, I placed down this little piano area. Now, I did this thing with the open book that we got in the Sims 4 base game, which we got in, the freelancer update. We got it maybe like 2-ish years ago or something, where we got the ability for your Sims to be able to be freelancers, they can be writers, programmers, whatever they fancy. Well, we got this like base game open book, literally use it in pretty much every single one of my builds. I had the idea, why not rotate that book, merge it into the piano, and try and make it seem like the Sim is maybe writing a song or something. Maybe there's like lyrics written on the book and it's been plopped on like the little area where I feel like you would normally have piano sheet music or something. And it's funny because I have actually done this before, but I haven't shown you it because I did it last week. I don't know if you caught it, but last week I built a really modern penthouse apartment in the world of San Myshuno, and that was a big build. Like, that was a huge build, and I had to cut out like the hallway areas and different spaces here and there because I spent so much time on that build, and I used a lot of like custom furniture pieces, and so you wouldn't have seen it last week, but I did actually do something very similar to that last week in last week's video. But instead of doing the book, last week I did like individual notes and piano music that we have in the game. When your Sim wants to learn a skill and there's like a skill book devoted to the skill that they want to learn and they can read it. There's like 3 different levels of every single skill book, and your Sim, once they get to a certain level, they have to buy a new book and so on and so forth to level up. Well, I used a piano level 1 book, I think, last week, and I made it look like piano music. And yeah, I thought it was a really good idea, and so I decided to do it in this build. But instead of using like piano sheet music or notes, I thought, why not rotate the open book that we've got in the game? I just love the look of it. I'm really happy with that little piano area. And then I placed down like some photo frames in the top, some hanging plants off the ceiling, and just loads of different like bits and bobs in that room. I also did switch out the dining room chairs at the last minute, and now I'm looking back at it, I kind of wish that I kept them the way that they originally was, because initially I placed down a mixed match of 2 different chairs. The one that I used from Cats and Dogs is the more like rustic, older looking one. I use that all the time. And then I used one from the Paranormal Stuff pack, and I wanted it to seem like the Sim that lives here, they haven't got like a full dining room set, and maybe they've just picked up a few chairs here, and then maybe someone gave them a few different chairs over time, and they've kind of got like this mismatched kind of table and chair area going on. I really liked the look of it, but the thing is, I remembered near the end that a lot of people don't often like it when builders mismatch chairs around dining room tables in their builds, and so I decided to switch it out, and I started to use some chairs that are all the same one from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. And now I'm looking back at it, I do think I prefer the version where I use the mismatched chairs rather than the full dining room set, because it feels a little bit more realistic in a way, a little bit more just homey. And I just wanted this house to be filled with loads of just like little homey details, sweet details, and just make it feel as wholesome as I could possible. And I feel like I probably should have kept the chairs as they was, but I mean, if you prefer the chairs the way they are now, then that is how they're going to be on the uploaded version of the gallery. But if you do like the way that I originally had the chairs, then you can definitely just delete the chairs that are around the table and then just, switch them back. But moving on, as you can see, I've now moved over and I've started furnishing the lounge room. So in here, I must admit, I didn't have a clue how I was going to furnish this room, because if you actually look at it, it's quite a big shape room, like it's a big size. You could definitely split this into 2 different rooms if you want to, but then it would be like 2 weirdly shaped kind of small rooms in a sense. It was just such a weird shape. It was just how the floor plan panned out. And so when it came around to decorating it, I was a little bit worried how I was going to be able to fill out the space, because I didn't know what to put in it, because I couldn't have had like another piano, because we've got a piano in the dining room, and I couldn't really, I just don't know. I was worried about when it came around to furnishing the lounge room, but I think it ended up turning out quite nicely. So in there, I placed down the fireplace, which is from the Cottage Living expansion pack, and then I merged in some paintings onto the fireplace itself. The ones that I've merged in are from the Paranormal Stuff pack. I then placed down the sofa and then a little armchair. The sofa, if you're curious, it's from the Basement Treasures kit. I think the whole idea behind that sofa was it's meant to be a sofa that's meant to be in like a dingy, dark, probably smelly basement. But I really liked it for this build, because if you look at the sofa itself, it looks like it's got, I'm not sure if it's a blanket or a jacket or a cardigan or whatever it is, but it looks like it's got something like thrown over the top of it in like 2 different areas. I really like that. It looks a little bit more realistic. And so I decided to use that. I then placed down some rugs onto the floor, and then I kind of had the lounge seating cozy area sorted, but then I had the rest of the room to try and fill out. And so I ended up placing down a bookcase, which is from the Sims 4 base game. I then also placed down a little cat tree, which I completely forgot to mention when I was talking about the sim that I imagined lived in this house, but I imagine a single sim lives here who is an artist. I've already mentioned that, but I do imagine that they've got a few cats. Like, they don't live on this secluded island completely by themselves. Like, they have got some company, and I imagine they had like maybe 2 cats. But I placed down the cat tree, and the cat tree placement just so happens to be where the cat would go up on like the top portion. They'll lay down, they'll like snooze and stuff. They have a little window and they can literally look out onto the sea. I thought it was really funny, because the cats probably have the best view in the whole of Tartosa, and they don't even know it. But I placed down a cat tree in there as well. That kind of like filled out the space quite nicely. And that object, I really struggle normally to try and place it down into my builds, because I really just never can find like the perfect place for it. But in that room, it just seemed to be like the perfect setting. I then also finished the room off by adding in a little desk area. The one that I've used is from the Werewolves game pack, and then I placed down a little chest as well behind the sofa. The chest again is from the Basement Treasures kit, but annoyingly and currently, and I'm saying currently because I think they're going to update it, but currently it's just like a blank piece of furniture that your Sims can't interact with. But a few weeks back, I did see on Twitter, one of the sim gurus, I'm really sorry, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the sim gurus did tweet a kind of like a little open symbol next to that chest. I feel like I explained that really badly, but basically, you know, we've got different storage areas in the game for if you want to maybe empty your Sims pockets, but you don't want to delete all the things that are in their inventory, and you want to kind of like keep them. Maybe they're like keepsakes, or maybe they're paintings that they did when they were younger or something. Basically, we've got these different storage solutions in the game where they're kind of like chests, and there's like a little open symbol which you can click. Your Sims don't have any interaction with it, but the object itself, you can store other items in it. And for some reason, with the Basement Treasures kit, they gave us the most perfect looking like trunk item to store all of your Sims stuff in. But your Sims can't put anything in it, and it's really confusing. But yeah, I did see on Twitter that a Sim Guru tweeted the chest itself and then the open symbol, which I feel like should have been there when the kit came out. But regardless, I think we're going to be getting the option to be able to actually store stuff in that chest, hopefully quite soon, because it's a really cool looking chest and it's perfect for your Sims to actually store all their bits and bobs in. But next to the chest, I placed down, I think, a few different like puzzles or something to make it look like maybe they were in the trunk and then the Sim has like pulled them out and just is yet to put them away. But regardless, moving on, as you can see, I've now moved over and I've started furnishing, or actually finishing up furnishing, the artist studio. So in here, I want it to be very cluttered, not messy, but very lived in, and I wanted it to feel like this is an active art studio, which the Sim might get 1,000,001 different ideas every single day, and so it's not like the tidiest of rooms, but I just love the way it turned out. So in there, I placed down 2 different art easels. I was thinking that one could be like the main art easel, and then one could be when the other one's like broken or something. I then placed down some different like canvases leaning up against the walls. I placed down like the painting drying rack. It's just like a purely decorative item, but we got it from the Sims 4 base game. It's an unlockable if your Sims are in the artist career. I then placed down the little candle making station, and then on the wall I moved objects, loads of different like candles that your Sims can make into the game. And then initially I placed down like the ones that don't have a flame, but then I really wanted the lighting to be very like yellowy and very just cutesy in that room. And so you would have seen I went back and deleted a few of the candles on the shelves and replaced them ones that have a flame, so then the lighting in that room is really pretty. But then I placed down some like newspaper onto the walls. I placed down like a few different cracks and bumps and stuff. I imagine that maybe over time the walls have started to decay a little bit and it's getting a little bit worn down and just a little bit more rustic, and it was just, I'm just so happy with that room. I'm just so happy with this house. I actually love this house so much. But anyway, moving on. As you can see, I've now moved over to the other side of the house, but I've now moved on to the upstairs portion. So this is where the 1 bedroom and the 1 bathroom is. But you can see that I'm just currently going around and decorating the bathroom. So this room only ends up having the bathtub, the toilet, the sink, and then there's like a litter box and stuff. But I didn't decide to place down the shower and bath combo in this room because I feel like there was a certain look that I was going for throughout the whole decoration of this house, like in terms of like the interior. And the shower and bath combos that we do have, they wasn't it. Like, they just wasn't matching the kind of idea that I wanted it to be. And so I ended up just using a bathtub. The one that I've used is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. And then I also did my favourite trick where I basically use any shelf in the game. I normally tend to go for the base game shelf, but I basically merged in this shelf onto the bath itself to make it look like it's like a little unit where your Sims can place down like their diary, their cup of tea, maybe like their shampoo and conditioner and stuff. I started doing this ages ago because I'm also like to have stuff around bathtubs and showers in the game, and up until fairly recently there was no slots in them. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but recently the Sims team went back and they updated a lot of the different toilets and sinks and bathtubs in the game. So there is like a slot for your Sims to have some clutter on. So it's more so like on the bathtub at the end where the taps are, but there is 2 slots. So your Sims can place down maybe like a candle, maybe some lotions or whatever they fancy. But even though we've still got these like automatic little slots, I still feel like I'm gonna edge towards having like a little shelf on the bathtub because I don't know, it just seems a little bit more homey to me. I also then placed down some candles around the bathtub as well, which just, it finished off the bathroom. The lighting in the bathroom just looks so nice once I added them candles in. The candles themselves, again, they're from Eco Lifestyle. They're ones that your Sims can make in the game. Maybe the Sim made a bunch of candles, maybe had too many to sell on Plopsy, and so maybe they placed them down into their bathroom around their bathtub. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last room, which is the bedroom. So in here I decided to use the bed that is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. I also ended up placing down another ottoman just kind of like at the edge of the bed because it was quite a big space, it was quite a big bedroom to fill out. And so I used the same ottoman that I used downstairs where I kind of made that little like built-in nook. I used the same ottoman at the end of the bed. There also ends up being like a little makeup vanity table in here, as well as a little chest of drawers area. And then I think I also end up adding like a really big kind of like leaning mirror on one of the walls. That mirror that I end up placing down is from the basement treasures kit, I believe. And then I just go around the room, finish it off with some paintings, which are from, I believe, Dine Out. But the paintings kind of look like the world of Tartosa, and so I just thought it's the most perfect fit. But apart from that, I'm going to finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.